Hi guys, guess we decided to do one of these again. I don't know how long it's been since the pilot, but personal stuff got in my way, and I never really wanted to force myself to do one of these tidbits every other week or whatever. Now, why am I doing this today of all days? Well, there's nothing really special about the date in particular. I believe I finally have a topic to speak about. For those who don't know, I'm not a native English speaker. I'm French Canadian, and I was born and raised in the province of Quebec. I've lived here for all 26 years of my life. I like it here. I'm proud of this small corner of Earth. And its history and culture I've learned much about. When I was 14 years old, I got my first laptop. This was back in 2012, I believe. And this would begin my, for lack of a better term, journey, quote unquote, on the internet without any kind of parental supervision. But I'm not here to talk about all the weird shit I've found or live leak videos I've watched. It's about the internet's perception of the province of Quebec itself. Quebec has a presence online, albeit a small one. There's only 8 million of us out there, after all. And not even all of them use the internet, and even all of them speak French. As a remark, most of you might not even know that the streamer XQC, that deranged guy, is in fact from here. Well, he lives in California now, but he was born here. We have our own meme culture as well, etc., etc. While I'm proud of where I live, I didn't really shout it out from the towers during my early years on the web. You know, as you're young, you try to forge a different identity when you get into social media circles and stuff, to try and fit in or look more cool. Uh, but I'm getting sidetracked. When I eventually came around to telling some of my online friends, uh, whom I've been close to, that I'm from Quebec, I've been met with generally responses that fall within two to three categories. People who have no idea where the fuck Quebec is, and honestly, I don't blame them. Uh, People who only know about Quebec because we speak French, and they rehash the same they act like I'm from France, and they rehash the same French jokes that everyone on the internet has heard about. And then finally, there's the people who know about Quebec and they hate it. Now, you probably noticed that I've been speaking in a bit of a weird manner. That's because this was scripted. And this next part is totally unscripted, mostly because I hate writing. And speaking out of my chest and improving my way through these videos was always what I wanted to do. So, going back to the three kinds of categories of people who I've talked about, the three kinds of categories of responses I get from people when I talk to them about Quebec. Now I can understand, like I said, people who don't know where it is. Quebec is just a province of Canada in the east. It is one of the biggest provinces, but most of it is empty because most of it is just tundra and actual Arctic in the north of it. That's mostly uninhabited except for native people. The French jokes, I've heard them 1,000 times. I'm used to it. But the last one has always intrigued me. People who know about Quebec and they hate it. Oh yeah, Quebec, that place fucking sucks. And I've always been like, what? Why? You know? And as I grew up on the internet, I came to realize that there is this perception of Quebec, mostly due to the fact that, okay, I have to preface this with some historical things, because otherwise you wouldn't really get what I'm trying to say. Historically, Quebec has been heavily Catholic, and separation between church and state took a long, long time in Quebec before it actually, the separation actually got done. It was done in the 60s, mind you. And a main reason for that is I have no idea, but the church held a lot of power onto the people of Quebec. the clergy as well. My parents always told me like stories of the town priest doing his rounds, as this says. He would go around people and collect the dime, the money for the church. That's stuff you would hear in like ancient times, or like maybe the 19th century. But no, it was still happening around here. And and people were really scared of, being in the bad graces of the clergy or the parish, and scared of being excommunicated, because basically that was like the word says, excommunicated. You would be banished from the community. And Quebec itself, we were basically like a small community all of itself. Most towns were like small communities. Everyone knew each other, so being excommunicated was like was horrible. It's a horrible thing. And um another thing was, once the separation of church and state was finally done, uh basically Quebec has like was they had it. Most of us had it with the church. One of the main things was due to one of the one of its, not rules, but things they instilled upon us, that upon my parents and their parents, that we were a French minority in a majority English country. And before, the whole identity of Canada and everything got consolidated, uh, we were basically French people in an English colony. We lost the war back during I believe the 7 Years' War or so. We lost the war against the English, and the English took the colony of New France, which was where Quebec is, from the Kingdom of France or the Empire of France. I can't remember if it was Napoleon back then. It probably was. We were taken away, and the English tried to assimilate us. They tried to turn us into English people, mostly. And the Catholic Church, since English people were Protestant, the Catholic Church basically became this bastion against the English for us. They decided you must create as many. They told women, Catholic women, French Catholic women, give birth as much children as you can, so we can resist the English invaders. You know, so we can resist the English conversion. And this sentiment continued to exist in French Canada, in Quebec, for over a century almost. Maybe even more. Until the 1960s, where we decided, you know, that's it. We're done with that. And we decided to go with secularity. Now, secularity, a lot of people are afraid of that word, mostly because they believe secularity means we don't want any religion to have any more power than any other religion, so that they're all equal. But also, it means that we don't want religions to also have any kind of power in politics. And this caused a lot of problems along the years with people who have mistaken secularity for phobia against certain religions, mainly Islam, because a large population of Quebec are Muslims and Islamic religious people, who have ran away from their countries due to the wars in the Middle East, mostly due to Syria civil war, and also the wars in the Libyan probably civil war in North Africa. And a lot of people, and recently we have come up with some rules which some people may find uh, are Islamophobic, when even though it's really against all religions, it's secularism, where we decided no government officials or anyone working in a public job should wear any kind of religious attire. So that means, indeed, that means the hijab for Islamic people. But it also means, crosses, the turban for Sikh people, the Sikh people, sorry. I may mispronounce some things. I'm sorry. I'm not familiar with religion as much as I should be. Um, and a lot of people have, due to media outlets outside of Quebec, who have misunderstood, and also mostly due to media outlets outside of Quebec, which are Canadian and mostly are anti-Quebec, because we, in the past, uh, have decided, because to those who don't know, Quebec decided for a while, we've had in government during the 80s a nationalist movement. Now, a nationalist movement for the province of Quebec itself. Separatists, in which we came up with the idea of like, what if we are just that different that we should probably just secede from Canada entirely and become our own country? And this was something that my parents it really appealed to a lot of people in Quebec. My parents and my parents as well. My parents were separatists, and the leader of the separatist party in Quebec was a very charismatic man by the name of René Lévesque, who I still look up to. Really nice person. Not without of course, his flaws like anyone else. And there was a referendum amongst the people of Quebec back then, and should we separate ourselves from Quebec, from Canada? The vote came in majority no at 51%. But this did not deter the separatist party from being around. And the party has been around for a long, long time. And it continued being around, and there was a revitalized separatist movement in the 90s, the mid 90s, under a man called Jacques Parizeau, which was a very eloquent man who once again talked about the idea of, hey, maybe, separating from Canada again. And this time, the government of Canada, which was under a man called Jean Chrétien, he was vehemently, very harshly against us trying to leave. Even back in the 80s, when we had, I believe, the Prime Minister of Canada was Pierre Elliott Trudeau, which is the father of current Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Both of them, Pierre Elliott Trudeau played both sides. He played the sides of the other provinces who hated Quebec. He played on their side by saying, like, we're gonna put Quebec in its place, and he also played on the side of Quebec by saying, we're gonna put you in your place, as in we're gonna elevate you because you have certain things that are different from the rest of Canada, and we want to, like, you have your own special, status. Eventually, that was kind of broken by the fact that the Canadian Constitution was signed by all provinces except Quebec, because the Prime Minister of Quebec back then, René Lévesque, did not want to sign the Constitution. So the rest of Canada met in secret with the Prime Minister, and they signed the Canadian Constitution without Quebec. So to this day, Quebec is still not in the Canadian Constitution, which has also, uh, widened the gap between the relations of Quebec and Canada. So back in the 90s, like I was saying with Jacques Parizeau, Mr. Jean Chrétien, the Prime Minister of Canada, was very harshly against Quebec. Any kind of like special treatment for us. And there was uh, there was a lot of rumors about the government of Canada inserting itself into Quebec politics to make sure that if a new referendum were to be um, proposed, that that the no side would win again. That referendum eventually came to pass, and the referendum was extremely close. If I remember correctly, the no side won by 0.5%. The no side was at 49.5%, I believe. Sadly, Jacques Parizeau was quite mad at this result because he knew that the government of Canada was impeding upon a referendum, and he went on a rant afterwards, which honestly ruined his career because he mentioned that the reason why the referendum did not win, he said this in public, mind you, was due to money and ethnic votes. He was referring to the fact that the government of Canada was getting non-French immigrants to vote for the no side inside Quebec. Great, I'm getting called. Hold on. Sorry about that. Now where was I? All right. So Mr. Jacques Parizeau was talking about ethnic votes that the government of Canada instilled due to immigrants. Now Mr. Jacques Parizeau got immense backlash for this, mainly to the fact that this was honestly sounding very racist. Even if he was right, I don't know if he was. Even if he was right, let's say hypothetically, if it was right, it was just an unacceptable thing to do, and he had to resign soon after. Later on, in the early 2000s, it was discovered that the government of Canada was actually funding the no side, and they even passed laws against any kind of future referendum, which angered us. But by the time this happened, and we knew, it was already too late, and the separatist movement of Quebec died down. And to this day, it has never reached the peaks that it did back in 1995 and 1982. And a lot of the perception of the outside world of these events mark us as some kind of nationalist country whom, of course, I can't go without talking about what happened in the 1970s. We've had a terrorist organization inside Quebec, which was akin to the IRA, called the Quebec Liberation Front. They did bombings, they kidnapped government officials, they even killed one. Their manifesto was exactly what you'd think about Quebec being free from the English and having our own country. Of course, I do not, support this kind of thing, despite me still being kind of a separatist at heart. Even though I believe that honestly, if Quebec were to separate from Canada, there was no way it would be economically viable. A lot of these things have coalesced, and clumped together to show the outside world, due also with, outside journalist interpretations that Quebec is a place of racism, Islamophobia, and nationalist tendencies and sovereignty. While in Quebec, sovereignty and nationalism mean very different things from, most of history. But there was also, there's this streamer which I follow, which is from Quebec. I believe he resides in Montreal right now. He doesn't. He speaks French, but he doesn't speak it as a first language. He's English mainly. His name is Sockpens, also known as Scorpy. Some of you might know him from the Wayne Radio TV group. He is a friend of theirs. He has spoken on Twitter before of when he grew up. Scorpy is a Muslim. He grew up in Quebec, and he is a bit older than I am. I'm 26 years old. He grew up having trouble learning the French language, and he was mocked in school because of it. And also, teachers even went as far as to say that he should change his last name because it didn't sound Quebecois enough. It didn't sound French enough because he was a Muslim. And I honestly, this is kind of like because of people like that inside Quebec that we have a bad reputation. People who have done these things to Sockpens, but these are the same kind of people who would have done the same thing to the Native Americans. Honestly, Canada has a bad history with Native American reserves, and most of it was not. I mean, not all of it was due to the French's fault. It was also Canada which continued it. We have a bad past, and I won't deny it. And it's due mainly to these factors that Quebec has a bad reputation online. But I want to tell you people that while these things have happened, I want to talk about the good things we've done. For those who are into wrestling, a lot of people in Quebec are into wrestling. People in Quebec, people in Japan, people in the United States lately also as well. Wrestling was mostly popular in Quebec and Japan before the WWE came around, and also the WF, the World Wrestling Federation. And a lot of wrestlers that are now in the WWE right now, some of them are from Quebec. Also, some astronauts who have gone onto the International Space Station, one of them is from Quebec. If you know about Ubisoft Montreal, the Assassin's Creed games, some of the Far Cry games, from Quebec. We've done a lot of things in the world. Some stuff to be proud of, some stuff not to be. But I want to say that I'm proud from where I live, and I don't want to erase the past, the bad things we've done. I don't want to say that they never happened. Every place has a bad past that they're trying to hide. Some hide it better than others. But what I want to say is, despite what we've done, Quebec has done its fair share for the world. Not just in terms of video games, or we've also have scientists, engineers, who have gone all over the world. given their taught their expertise and such. And this is what makes me proud of being from Quebec. This is why I don't shy away from it anymore. People can tell me all the bad things they know about Quebec, whether those things are completely false and just stuff that has been made up by media outlets. I'll be glad to tell them the truth, that indeed some of the things we've done were bad, and that some of them were honestly warped up by the media. But I still believe the good we've done outweighs the bad. I'm not saying the bad never happened, but my voice is trembling a bit. I'm sorry. To close this video, I want to say that when it comes down to, like, if you don't not exactly sure if you've heard things about a certain place on the internet, it doesn't have to be Quebec. It could be anywhere else in the world. I've had friends from different countries of which I've had a bad opinion about, but they've taught me all about their own things. Yeah, all about how, from an insider, how it feels to be inside this place or this country. And it's all about, understanding each other. It's about communication. It's about, things tend to get warped up in due time. And I want to thank all the people who have helped me understand not only more of where I come from, but also of where they come from as well. And I want to also thank all my friends who have been able to deal with me for all of the years I've been on the internet. You guys rock. If there's ever another episode of this, I don't know where it will be. I still have stuff in real life that I need to deal with. So, until next time.